Good evening, ma'am.
Thanks, 𝗖𝗺𝗺𝗂𝘀. Over to Dr. Singh to take it forward from here.
Good evening, everybody. I'm glad that we've all gathered here to meet, to interact, to ideate, and to meet a person who has made much of an impact. At the Vinaya Mission School of Economics and Public Policy, the Idea to Impact series, of which this is the 6th episode. This series serves as a vibrant platform to trace the powerful evolution of ideas, right from the genesis in academic environments to their eventual transformation into public policy. Each episode offers a deep dive into the life cycle of innovation, spotlighting how thought-provoking concepts first discussed in classrooms, research forums, or public dialogues travel through institutions, influence national discourse, and ultimately shape the future of governance. This series is more than a conversation. It's a narrative of vision, perseverance, and impact. By revisiting historical roots, unpacking ideation processes, and examining real-world policy outcomes, Idea to Impact celebrates the unique role of academia in driving societal progress. In this episode, the 6th one, we turn our focus to a topic of national relevance, from campus to country, catalyzing skill, employment, and innovation through academic ecosystems. This is an exploration of how educational institutions can fuel India's innovation economy and job creation landscape. We are honored to welcome Shri 𝗖𝗺𝗺𝗃, a highly respected former Indian Administrative Service officer with an exceptional 36-year career in public service. As Additional Chief Secretary to the Government of Maharashtra, Mr. Singh has been instrumental in shaping policies that advance skill development, entrepreneurship, and innovation. His strategic leadership has played a key role in strengthening Maharashtra's socio-economic fabric. An alumnus of the renowned Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs, Mr. Singh exemplifies a commitment to thoughtful governance and impactful policy. His presence at VSCP brings invaluable perspective on the real-world translation of ideas into governance frameworks. We thank Mr. Singh for joining us, and sir, we look forward to an insightful and inspiring session. Welcome, sir. And I also welcome all my friends and fraternity from all over India who are part of this webinar, who've taken the time to be here to listen to an accomplished person whose expertise is known, is proven. Sir, I can assure you that you have eager listeners amongst us, people who want to know how you thought, what made you think of innovation, and what were the thoughts in your mind when you were trying to develop Maharashtra into what it is, an exceptional state. And we want the rest of India to follow suit as well. So we want to turn our ideas, we want to tune in our skills, we want to be innovators and entrepreneurs, but we need support, and we look forward to listening to how you think people with such minds could move forward. Thank you, sir, for being with us, and thank you, friends, for joining us. I hope we will have a good session together, listening and interacting. Over to you, Shri Ashish Kumar Singh.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. I feel like a pigeon amongst cats, and I'm a little intimidated by the fact that all of you, such bright minds, are on the other side of the screen. Dean of the VSCP, Professor 𝗙𝗺, distinguished faculty, staff, most importantly, all the brilliant minds of VSCP, ladies and gentlemen, very good evening to all of you. It's a matter of tremendous pleasure and an honor to be with you today. I received the invitation from Professor 𝗙𝗺 to speak at this remarkable institution. I was struck by the theme assigned to me. Access to country, catalyzing skill, employment and innovation through academic ecosystems. It's a theme that's as timely as it is urgent. It's a theme that is especially fitting for a generation that finds itself at the confluence of great uncertainty and real possibility. I would request that all others who are on the screen may perhaps keep their audio switched off, so there's no echo. Now, as a practitioner of public policy for 37 years, I have seen firsthand how institutions, when nurtured thoughtfully, can become engines not only of education, but of national transformation. What we often call campus life is not a mere interlude before you start your real life. In fact, I was speaking to the professor of mathematical finance in the University of Toronto last week on a screen like this, when he said, you could check him out, his name is 𝗙𝗺𝗍𝒂. He said that those days when people did 24 years of education and then went to work are over. It's now the time for us to be continuously educating ourselves. So campus life is not going to ever end, and nor is it like the beginning of a real life. In fact, real life and campus life are going to be interconnected all the time henceforth. No campuses where the country's future is drafted, debated, and decided. Yes, that's where it's going to happen. So today I want to talk to you about three bridges: the bridge from skill to employment, the bridge from knowledge to innovation, and the bridge from the campus to the country. And in each of these, I'll urge you to not just walk the bridge, but to build it. Let's look at the first one, the bridge from skill to employment. Let me begin by asking you a simple question. Are you being skilled for the world that was or the world that is coming? Do we even know what the world which is going to come is going to be like? A lot of academic institutions, especially in rapidly developing countries, have long relied on a playbook that worked in the past, teaching students to memorize facts, reproduce frameworks, and follow rules. That may have been enough to get a job a generation ago, but unfortunately, in today's world, that will not get us very far, because the real economy, whether it is in Bangalore or Boston, Tokyo or Toronto, is now driven by agility, by learning velocity, and by multidisciplinary synthesis. Let me give you an example. In Silicon Valley, companies hire liberal arts majors to work in machine learning teams, not because they know how to code, but because they know how to ask good questions. Conversely, we have seen engineers fail to find meaningful work because they lacked communication and critical thinking skills. So what does this mean for us? It means that skill is no longer a static noun. It's a dynamic verb. It's not what you have, it's what you can acquire. It's the responsibility of a good academic ecosystem, not just to teach you, but to teach you how to teach yourself. At universities like Stanford, Harvard, MIT, and even Caltech, there are students today who start out in anthropology and end up building medtech startups. We must encourage people, therefore, to roam intellectually, to learn across boundaries. That is the kind of thinking that fuels a modern economy. VSEP has to be a place where curiosity is not only encouraged, it is demanded, where internships are not last-minute obligations, but integrated parts of learning experience, where your skill set is not defined by your degree, but by your drive. Long time ago, I was in a roundtable with the head of research of IBM, the global head of research of IBM. I was posted in the Prime Minister's office in Delhi in those days, and we were four of us on a roundtable. And surprisingly, what he told me really struck me. What he said was that they were trying to build a human with a skill set that could ensure that the wage differential between an American worker and the rest of the world continues to remain so in the next 50 years. And so what is that skill set which this human should have? And he at that time felt that it needed a skill set of engineering, basic sciences, social sciences, and management. So you can imagine the kind of canvas that they were looking for to ensure that the wage differential between an American worker remains to be as much as it is with the rest of the world for the next 50 years to come. Because in the end, degrees don't get jobs. It's the capabilities that do. Let's look at the second bridge, the bridge from knowledge to innovation. Let's look at this one in a way in which the world as it is today is structured. We live in a world awash with a lot of social media. Generative AI today can write essays, summarize legal cases, even compose music and draw art. What it still cannot do, and what you must learn to do, or we must learn to do, is to generate meaning from knowledge. Innovation does not emerge from having all the answers. It emerges from asking questions that no one else has thought to ask. It emerges when we see connections between seemingly unrelated domains, biology and computer science, psychology and urban planning, ethics and engineering. One of the professors I was speaking to teaches a course in Stanford called Designing Your Life, where students apply principles of product design to create meaningful careers. Another project which came out of a school of medicine and involved working with the School of Engineering to build low-cost diagnostic tools for remote areas in Africa. That's innovation, born not from individual genius, but from collaborative insight. We are today sitting on a goldmine of opportunity to replicate that spirit, but it will require a cultural shift. Too often, innovation in our academic institutions is reduced to buzzwords and business plans. But innovation is not just about startups or accelerators or incubators. It's about problems solved, communities transformed, and lives improved. So, students, ask yourself, what local problem could you solve with your knowledge? Could we create a fintech app to help farmers get better access to credit? Could we design low-cost housing materials using waste products? Could we use behavioral economics to improve attendance in government schools? That's the kind of thinking that would turn our campuses into catalysts and students into nation builders. Now let's move on to the third bridge, the bridge from campus to country, one of the most important bridges of all. Universities are not just where future of our country lies. It is where the future of the planet lies. And here's something I want all of us to remember. The campus is not a bubble, it's a beacon. The values we cultivate here, rigor, empathy, collaboration, creativity, must radiate outwards. I know that in many parts of the world, graduates come out of the universities only to be told that the job market is saturated, the government is slow, the world is unfair. And often that is true. But let me also say this. Some of the greatest movements in history, social, technological, political, financial, began not in parliaments or boardrooms, but on campuses. It was students who led the civil rights movement in America. It was students who pushed for democratization in Eastern Europe. And even Tiananmen Square in China was about students. And it will be students like you who redefine India's place in the global economy. But to do that, we must do more than succeed individually. We must contribute institutionally. Build student enterprises that solve real problems. I often tell my children, I have two sons, I often tell them that solving the most difficult problems in economics or physics, or even mathematics, my eldest son is a student of mathematics. He finished his MSc in mathematics from London. And I was telling him that solving problems which have already been solved by maybe 50,000 people earlier, or maybe just 5 people earlier, doesn't make any impact on society. It may be a very difficult problem, but it has already been solved. So to solve those problems which have already been solved is not what the issue today is, howsoever difficult that problem would have been. What we need to do is to solve real problems which have not been solved and think about those problems which need solutions. We need to start journals and podcasts that challenge conventional wisdom. Participate in local governance, civic technology health initiatives. Connect with alumni and local industries to create knowledge corridors between the university and the broader economy. I've always said impact is the only metric that matters. That means your GPA is not as important as the footprint you leave on people, on policies, on possibilities. What can we as an entity, including the VSEP, do? Let me also speak about the role of the university leadership and faculty, because this transformation cannot rest on students alone. An academic ecosystem that catalyzes national growth must do 4 things. Encourage interdisciplinary learning, which means breaking the silos. Bring the School of Agriculture into the conversation with the School of Business. Let engineers learn to design. Let artists learn data. Creativity emerges at the intersections. 2, enable real-world exposure. Encourage every student to take up experiential projects, rural internships, startup apprenticeships, policy labs. Embed the real world into the curriculum. 3, invest in research with purpose. Not all research must lead to a patent, but all research must have a reason, be it intellectual advancement, social change, or environmental preservation. 4, measure what matters. Let's stop measuring success by placements alone. Measure it by innovation created, communities impacted, and ideas advanced. This university particularly has the potential to be not just a center of learning, but a lighthouse institution, guiding others, shaping discourse, and driving information. I think we are at an inflection point in history. India is one of the youngest countries in the world. With that, youth comes not just demographic advantage, but democratic responsibility. We are going to be the architects of the country's next chapter. We are the ones who will teach AI to be ethical, who will write policies that include rather than exclude, who will build enterprises that solve rather than exploit. We will choose whether to be passive recipients of education or active creators of change. We will choose whether this campus remains a beautiful piece of architecture or becomes a launch pad for a national renaissance. And we will choose whether our story will be one of narrow success or of expansive significance. So I leave you today with this: skill yourself relentlessly, innovate fearlessly, serve fearlessly, and never forget, the country you want to live in tomorrow depends on what you build today on this campus with these peers using these years. The bridge from campus to country is already under your feet. Now walk it with courage and build it for others. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and may your journeys be bold, brilliant, and beneficial to all. I would request you to open it for questions and answers in case there are any.
Thank you, Mr. Singh, for this delivery that you've given us of the 3 bridges that we need to cross, but not just cross it, but also people who build the bridges, and for reminding us that we have a job to do and that we have to measure what really matters. Now I invite those who are present here to share their thoughts and also raise their questions so that we need to be beautiful. We need to include rather than exclude. And just reflecting on the few thoughts that Mr. Singh closed with, that we need to be active participants of change rather than passive recipients of education, if I got you right, sir?
Yes, ma'am. That's what I believe.
Yeah. Most of our students, actually, while people are thinking, let me put my thoughts together as well. Most of our students seem to be stuck on stumped by the problems that they see, or you have a kind of an Indian mindset to accept, to be tolerant, and to adapt accordingly. What would you suggest is the key factor that makes us actually not tolerant of things that could be avoided? How do we as educators fuel the young minds to bring positive change, to become problem solvers rather than people who accept problems?
I mean, if you ask my thought, I would only say that it has to start from school. In our schools, we are wanting always to be very disciplinary in our approach towards the children. We want them to be super obedient. We want them to be super disciplined. And unfortunately, innovation doesn't happen in those boundaries of discipline and obedience, because until unless you actually are a little out of the box yourself and think out of the box, therefore, you wouldn't be able to innovate much. You wouldn't be able to actually understand what problems you need to. Also, you wouldn't be able to think of the problems themselves, because solutions are kind of given through the discipline itself. So we need to bring in a lot of fearlessness in our academic system. Typically, in institutions which have a lot of marks for internal assessment, you will see that behavioral issues play a very big role in the assessment of in the internal assessment of students. Unfortunately, that is something which ought not to have been there, because my interpersonal relationship with you should not decide what should be my internal assessment like. Because if I am more innovative, if I'm more creative, if I'm someone who's solving issues which have not been solved before, they need to be given due weightage. But Indian systems do not provide for it. Indian systems are very disciplinary in their very approach. And as academicians, my strong request to all of you and would be that until unless we kind of bring in a lot of indiscipline in our campuses, and when I say indiscipline, I'm wanting it to be clarified to be indiscipline of the academic type, where every question is there are no dumb questions, howsoever humiliating or insultful it might be for the person who's answering it. That's where I think we need to focus so that we are able to bring also this recognition. Like, someone like Ramanujan had to go to Cambridge and meet Hardy to become Ramanujan. And after that, we haven't been able to produce one single Ramanujan in this country, and we are 150 crore people. So there's something significantly wrong in society that, such a large number of people are not able to produce one single Ramanujan in 100 years. It's not that they are not getting produced, it's just that they are not getting recognized. And you all must have yourself in your own academic life very often felt that recognition is something which we are very, very slow in actually acknowledging, or for that matter, giving people this idea that they are doing very well, they have done something great, is something which we are a little slow on. So people don't get encouraged actually to kind of innovate, to kind of find questions which do not have answers and work on them, because everything is typically dependent on how quickly you are able to solve problems which have already been solved by a large number of people before, even though that large number may be still very small compared to the larger population.
We would share some of your thoughts on how you, as secretary to the, additional secretary, in skilling, innovation, and entrepreneurship. What were the challenges that you actually encountered, and how you were able to build up that particular wing of development? And what is it that you would prescribe, if you could, for universities to take away? Could, for example, you talked about a multidisciplinary, an interdisciplinary approach to education, creativity. Could institutions be made to recognize, instead of complete 100% reproduction of texts, could universities mandate that every individual comes up with unique solutions to problems that others have not seen, and give a marking system for that? Could that be a step up towards innovation and entrepreneurship, solving real life issues? And could this start not just in school? Could it be mandated in higher education institutions? What do you think, sir?
Yes, ma'am, I kind of agree with you that we need to kind of now start assessing students based on the questions that they have rather than the answers that they provide. So if you can start assessing them for the quality questions that they have, they may be very difficult ones. I mean, somebody is trying to solve the Riemann's hypothesis in mathematics. It has not been solved for the last 300 years. So maybe it will take another 100 years. But if somebody is actually on it, we need to encourage it. Because as I keep saying, that solving problems which already have been solved before, even if there are few people who have solved it before, doesn't really mean much. Then there are two different types of innovation. One is the transformative type of innovation, and the other one is the incremental type of innovation. The transformative innovation would require things like bringing in innovation in nuclear fusion, maybe artificial general intelligence, quantum computing, and stuff like that, space, material sciences. Whereas incremental innovation is what you typically see in improving the solar panel efficiency. I mean, I'm talking in terms of science because it's a little more easy to quantify there. But when I was speaking, I was actually talking more about policy, because there I think that you need to have a lot of interdisciplinary contribution to be able to bring in improvements in the quality of life of human beings. So here it could be solar panel efficiency, better battery storage, some industrial automation, some jugaad type of innovation, which is incremental in nature. And the two kind of go along together. One is stepwise and the other one is more disruptive. So I think that we need to kind of, in our academic centers, try and see first, try and start assessing students on the questions that they have, the quality of questions that they ask, and then see the kind of answers they have for that qualitatively high question that they have defined for themselves. And this will bring in a lot of innovation even in policy. In my own working space, I must tell you that the challenge in policy, particularly at the level of the government, is that you are dealing with all the segments of society. So let's say if you are looking at skilling, you need to look at people who have absolutely no skills, and you need to also look at people whose skills have become dated. So for example, if you were a coder 10 years ago, that was very smart. But today with ChatGPT and Anthropic and Grok and all that you have today, ordinary coding has absolutely no future. And so you need to reskill them. You need to upskill them. You need to start making them understand that they have to ask new questions now. Whereas someone who's completely unskilled, so for example, you are looking at a rural woman and you want her to kind of do well, there you need to kind of train her on how to actually improve storage, how to actually maybe do something which has livelihood issues within the community, how to create a Amul kind of a structure where milk can be converted into milk powder and have a longer storage life and so on. They are issues of process innovation. That's not level. The problem is that we are dealing with so many different types of people and so many types of challenges that is out on all of them very often. But in an academic institution, the beauty is that you can actually focus on each one of them separately, because there are people who are fully dedicated to just doing that stuff. So I think if you can make people ask difficult questions and then try and find solutions to those difficult questions, whether it be process innovation, product innovation, whether it be transformative innovation, or whether it be incremental innovation, all of them have a space in the academic world, and all of them can be used very, very productively for making it.
I have a small, Monica ji has a question.
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes. Thanks for the presentation, sir. I have one question. As a professor, we used to tell the students that entrepreneurship is good and innovation, you have to come up with innovative minds and all those. But sometimes students ask us the question like, how do you say, ma'am, you are asking us to become an entrepreneur or do innovations, but jobs will be they feel that as a secure for them. How can we justify them that if you come up with an entrepreneurship idea or new idea, and you can also sustain in this world, how can we justify the students? How can we make them, how can we build confidence that you can also sustain in the society if you bring up with new idea, innovative idea, and also an entrepreneur?
Ma'am, as I just said, that until and unless you make them ask questions and start assessing them on the quality of questions that they have, you will provide them with questions which have answers and which therefore do not have a chance of being innovative, because they are questions which have been already answered. So I personally feel that one most important thing that you need to do is that before you can become an entrepreneur, you need to actually have a product or a process which you are good at, and that you believe in it. Until unless you either have a product or a process which you believe in and which you think has a possibility of your talent pushing it, pushing the envelope a little further, I doubt if any student or any one of us can succeed in entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is an area where competition is very, very stiff, and also the risks are very high. But without entrepreneurs, there are going to be no jobs anyway. I mean, how many people can be employed by government? Even today, if you look at, say, 80% to 95% of Indians are employed in jobs which are not in the government, and somebody is entrepreneurial enough to have created those jobs. So we need to therefore tell them that you have two options: either become an employee or become an employer. Which one is it that you would like to be? Should decide the course of action of your life. And I feel that for that, the first thing is that they need to find the right questions for which solutions are needed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ashish ji, I have a small question. See, as a teacher, I have always believed that each lecture is actually a storytelling session.
It is.
So no matter what subject you teach, you actually tell stories.
Yeah.
So given your this huge experience in the administration, and you must have seen a lot of practical things happening. So of course, what you said is definitely inspiring, but probably as young generation or as people who has not seen the administration from the perspective you have seen, maybe if you can help us with some examples where you have seen that changes are happening, that is where the concepts are turning to impacts. So if you can just share any be it from Maharashtra or elsewhere, if you can tell us a small example, that will be really helpful for all of us.
Sure. So let's look at the most significant innovation that India has seen, which is something which most people in this room will be excited about, is the nuclear bomb, right? It was the ingenuity of the Indian scientists that, despite all the global opposition, despite all the sanctions that India had to go through, we managed to build it, and that was what I would call innovation at scale. When lots of minds get together and create something like a Manhattan Project. Some of you must have seen the Oppenheimer movie. You would realize that it takes a lot of effort. It takes engineering innovation, it takes innovation in theoretical physics, and it takes innovation in the labs, and all of that then put together makes it happen. And India could do it, and many other countries are struggling to do it, and they all want to do it, but we have managed to do it. And therefore, when I was in the Prime Minister's office, we also signed the nuclear deal with the United States finally, and so now we are out of the sanctions regime. So that's innovation at some super large scale. Now let's look at innovation at some very, very small local level scale, because I've also worked in the Bombay Municipal Corporation, which is like a municipality. So I can let's look at something which is like seriously, looks very insignificant but means a lot. So for example, olden days, people had these bikes which needed to be repaired all the time. I don't know, when I was in college, these ordinary bicycles, they had a chain coming out all the time. Now somebody innovated and ensured that now the chain doesn't come. I was growing up, that was a big pain. In fact, it used to come out very frequently, and it used to take a lot of effort, get out of the bike, then put the chain back, and so many times one would get hurt. while putting the chain in or when the chain came out. It either sometimes, created a little wound in your leg or in your hand while you're putting it back, and so on. So these are small innovations which also mean a lot and improve efficiency in a very significant way. And now, though the 𝗖𝗺𝗺𝗃 has become the owner of the Airtel, which is a technology business, and many of us have Airtel telephone connections. In fact, it started with Atlas cycles. So what I'm trying to say is that when you innovate, you could innovate at a very small scale because there was a huge demand. Now I'll give you another one example, which many of you would be aware of what happens in the rural areas. Typically, farmers didn't know what was the price in the market on a particular given day of a product. So ITC created what was called 𝗖𝗺𝗺𝗃𝗺𝗃, and all that they did was to inform the farmer as to what the price in the market was of a particular product. That ensured that the farmer now could negotiate much more efficiently with the middleman who was buying the stuff from the farmer. Because the farmer said that, look, there is this huge gap between what you're paying me and what the market price is. And I know what the market price is. So please, let's renegotiate our contract. So what I'm trying to say is that every small little thing, then they created WhatsApp groups. Now WhatsApp groups are almost free to create, doesn't need any extra efficiency. And somebody ensured that it happened. Now, to just give you an example, there is this organization in Nashik, which we supported from our department, which is doing farm to table supply of agricultural goods, particularly vegetables. So now farm to table supply of vegetables, when you do it, you can actually bring in tremendous amount of profitability to both the producer as well as the consumer. Because otherwise, most of the money is made by the middleman. Also, making money in the middle is not a problem, but what is the problem is that you do not get the freshest of the product. So here the consumer is benefited, the producer is benefited, and people who are not really adding any value get cut out as well. So small stuff like this can have great significance. You could perhaps start producing things like broccoli, or if you were a farmer, and you would realize that producing broccoli gets you more money than producing cauliflowers. Also, broccoli can be produced in a greenhouse, whereas cauliflower needs open area and has a whole lot of issues of dealing with pests. Whereas a much smaller quantity of broccoli earns you the same amount of money that a much larger quantity of cauliflower doesn't. So this is on the agriculture side, and you can look at so many similar innovations. Even in government itself, you will see that there is a lot of electronic movement of papers and files now. You will see that the UID, which the Aadhaar thing, is a very big innovation, that all of us have a unique numbers, which ensures that almost everything about us now gets interlinked. It makes taxation efficient. It makes identification efficient. It makes so many other things efficient. I mean, no one needs to prove anything. To get a passport, you need to have an Aadhaar, and it's still very early days. But 30, 40 years from now, it will be very helpful that your one number connects you to everything, and anyone can, even know exactly what's happening to various bank accounts, because they're all connected by just one number now. So these are all possible innovations, which are otherwise they look very ordinary. They look not so exciting, but somebody identified this problem and solved for it, and then we see that it brings in tremendous efficiencies. Like government was earlier transferring monies to people who are dead, not alive, people who didn't exist. But with the Aadhaar, it's made it so much more easier. The direct benefit transfer is now possible, which was not possible earlier. So these are small things, but they have significant impact on people's lives. And I think what we need to do is, as I said, make our children ask difficult questions, assess them on the questions that they ask, and then make them solve them. We do not know the answers to them either. It's not like the questions that the students are going to bring in the classrooms are the ones for which we all have the answers. But the fact that they have come out with an intelligent question is something which a teacher can easily assess. And help them problem solve it.
So, any other questions from the floor?
I see students in the group, so I invite the students to raise some questions.
Yeah.
As you see, it's all about asking the right questions.
And as I said, there are neither dumb questions nor any questions which are insulting to anyone. You could be as harsh or as smart as you would like to be.
Asking question is a primary thing. Yes, Yanki.
Good evening, sir. I'm a student. As a student, I have a question. What innovative teachings method can be implemented to enhance the critical thinking and problem solving skills among the students? Can you, sir, tell about some points for the students?
Yeah, I think the most important teaching methodology should be to let the students understand that they have to learn for themselves. Nobody has been able to teach anyone anything if one is not in a learning mode. And if one is a learning, if the teachers are able to make the students understand that you got to learn it for yourself, you got to find your own solutions to the problems that you identify, and teachers will handhold you to kind of seek those answers, because as I said, at the level of the university, there is not much of a gap as in the capacity of the brain or intellectual capability of the student and the teacher. I mean, both are at almost at the same level as far as intellectual capability is concerned. It's just that maybe a professor would have read a little more because he's been in that in this world longer. But that still doesn't mean that he would have read the solution to the problem that you have identified. And so I would feel that we must, as students, take this responsibility of being learners and learners for ourselves, not because the professors have to teach us, but because we got to teach ourselves. And that's where this whole thing has to be understood by students, that it's our problem and it's our solution. And the teachers are there